Stay wild at heart.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination news. Newsmakers, talking points, Friday night. Let's tell you what we have at the top of the show tonight. The fury over the Agnipath scheme is raging across several parts of the country. Will the Modi government dilute the scheme or roll it back? That's going to be a big headline on the news today. We'll have lots on the show on that, different dimensions on that big story. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9. Friday, fire and fury on the streets against government's Agnipath scheme. Protests break out in UP, Bihar, Telangana. Trains set ablaze, stone pelted, police and civilians targeted. Navy chief assures India Today the agitating youth on Agnipath benefits. Home Minister Amit Shah, Rajnath Singh reach out to anti-Agnipath protesters as BJP goes into damage control mode. Blames the opposition for fanning protests for political gains. The Congress, other parties demand rollback of the scheme. The CBI raids Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot's brother Agrasen Gehlot, who has been accused of exporting subsidized fertilizer between 2007 and 9. Congress accuses the BJP of vendetta. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh says assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir could be held by the end of this year. Says a strong possibility of that electoral process kicking off before 2023. Streets submerged in water, massive power blackouts, deluge leaves trail of destruction in flooded Assam, claims 8 lives. Bharat Biotech announces its jab Covaxin is proven safe for recipients in the 2 to 18 age group. Lancet study verifies the claim Covaxin generates higher antibody response in children than adults. India bans government employees from using VPN, Google Drive and Dropbox. This after new VPN policy mandates storage of user data by service providers for up to 5 years. The UK government signs off on the extradition of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange on spying charges. Counter appeal by Assange's legal team expected to restart. England smashes a world cricket record, the highest ever ODI runs in a single innings against Netherlands. Missed the 500 mark by 2 runs as Josh Butler scores a mammoth 150. But our top story and our top focus this Friday night is the Agnipath fire that's raging across the country. That's right. The government's ambitious recruitment scheme for the military has seen protests not just in the epicenter of Bihar now, but it's spread to Uttar Pradesh, national capital. Students continuing to hit the streets even in southern India, in Secunderabad, where one person was killed. A train station was set ablaze. Public property, particularly trains, have been the victim of these protests that have spread across the country. Remember, a large number of our army aspirants or those who had passed exams are venting their ire, placing burning tires on the road, crippling transportation. Protests also erupting in UP's Balia, where aspirants with lathis broke shops and benches at the railway station. Train coaches have also been torched. The national capital, Delhi, on the edge. Aspirants sitting on demonstration against the scheme are demanding the withdrawal of Agnipath. Those are the scenes across the country. Now, Bihar is the epicenter of the violence. Remember, a large number of the army aspirants come from Bihar. From setting trains ablaze to arson on the streets, protesters have gone on rampage in various parts of the state. Following the violence, the centre has tweaked the scheme, increased the upper age limit to 23 years from 21 at least for the first batch of army recruits. But what's happening on the ground? It's our top story tonight.
Trains burnt. Stations vandalized. Roads blocked. Bihar is seeing the worst protest against the Agnipath scheme, which has brought youth onto streets in many states. At least 12 trains were targeted by mobs in various parts of Bihar.
The entire train has turned into ashes. You can see smoke, embers still there. The administration, in fact, trying real hard to douse the fire that this entire train caught. And you can see not one, not two, almost 6 to 7 compartments were enveloped in flames from the morning till the evening. They've been trying to douse the fire.
This is the Kulharia railway station in Ara district of Bihar. This is just about 15 kilometers away from Ara. This is the Kulharia railway station, and you can see how 4 coaches of the Patna-Ara passenger train have been set on fire here. And now you can see this train has turned into a burning train.
The protesters did not even spare children. A school bus in Darbhanga was caught in the crossfire of protest. Children were seen wailing inside the bus.
जो हमारे पास फोर्सेज उपलब्ध थी वो सभी जिला को दी गई हैं और जिला ने भी अपने रिसोर्सेज को पूलिंग किया है, लेकिन जो विरोध का जो क्वांटम है वो कुछ ज़्यादा है आज कल की तुलना में, और काफ़ी लोग इसमें आ गए, कुछ असामाजिक तत्व भी लोग इसमें जुड़ गए हैं। हम लोग पूरा प्रयास कर रहे हैं उसको नियंत्रण करने के लिए, और कुछ जगह बल प्रयोग भी किया गया है, कुछ लोगों की गिरफ्तारी भी की गई है, तो आशा है कि हम लोग इसको नियंत्रण कर लेंगे।
In Betia, Deputy Bihar CM Renu Devi's residence was vandalized.
जो अग्निपथ का जो कंसेप्ट है वो बच्चे नहीं पकड़ पा रहे हैं, उनको समझना पड़ेगा। ये कंसेप्ट 17.5 साल इंटर किए हैं, उनको ग्रेजुएट का भी उनको सर्टिफिकेट मिलेगा 4 साल के ट्रेनिंग में।
Protesters found support from political parties. Even Nitish's JDU, an ally of the Modi government, sought a review of the recruitment scheme.
नौजवानों में गुस्सा है, आखिर 4 वर्षों के बाद जो शस्त्र चलाने का ट्रेनिंग लेगा वो फिर जब लौट कर आएगा तो 75% नौजवानों को नियुक्ति कहीं होगी नहीं, नौकरी नहीं मिलेगी। तो वो उस उम्र में जब शस्त्र चलाने की वो ट्रेनिंग लेंगे तो फिर वो क्या करेंगे? आग लगाएंगे।
Late on Thursday night, the government made the first tweak to its Agnipath scheme. As the anger spread, the centre increased the upper age limit to 23 years. The 3 service chiefs also came on record to tell youth that they are being misdirected.
They haven't fully understood the contents and the implications of the scheme, and that is why there are some apprehensions in their mind. But once they have fully understood the contents of the scheme, I am sure that they will realize it is not only for their good, but also for the good of the nation and good of the Indian Army.
The government has recently announced the Agnipath scheme for enrollment in the armed forces. This change would permit a larger section of the youth to enroll as Agniveers.
Nation के लिए कुछ करना है. That is what the ethos of this whole scheme was. To ensure that we build a nationalist ethos among the youth who serve for 4 years. They are empowered, they are educated, they get enriched, they get a seva nidhi, and then when they go out, he's very young at that point of time. Imagine joining at 17 and a half. When you're going out, you're only about 22, and that age, the world is yours.
So far, the protesters have not been convinced about the government's assurances. So will the centre dilute the Agnipath scheme further? Bureau Report, India Today.
So let's raise the big questions. Outrage over Agnipath. Has the scheme been mishandled by the centre in terms of its communication on it? Is the opposition fanning the flames of these protests? Should the Modi government at all consider rollbacking the Agnipath scheme in some form? Those are just some of the questions that we will raise. Aparajita Sarangi is BJP MP. Uttam Kumar Reddy is Congress MP and has been a former Armed Forces man himself. Jasmine Shah, Vice Chairperson, Dialogue and Development Commission with the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi. And Abhishek Jha of JDU. Remember, Bihar is the epicenter of the protest. Aparna Sarangi, to you first. Did the government of India, or dare I say the BJP in particular, anticipate this kind of violent reaction that the Agnipath scheme would throw up, or have you all been caught a little off guard?
A very good evening. Rajdeep, at the outset, let me tell you that I'm Aparajita, I'm not Aparna.
Yes, Aparajita,
so this is
sorry.
the second or third time you have done it in the last 3 debates. So I had to point it out. Now, as far as the scheme is concerned, let me tell you that nobody should doubt the intention and the policy of Prime Minister Modi government. This has been done to ensure that our army, that our armed forces, in fact, become very much young and agile. And with the best of intentions, this scheme has been brought in. And another thing I would like to mention...
No, you're not answering my question. Did you... No, ma'am, I'm sorry. The violent protest, did you anticipate this, Aparajita Sarangi, yes or no? Or was the government caught off guard?
I would definitely not say that we had anticipated. Nobody had anticipated, and this violence cannot be condoned. I mean, this is not the way at all to express your concerns. If there are concerns, and there are concerns as we can see, should be expressed in proper manner. I think there is some kind of fanning the flame which is also going behind. Who is doing, I think, time will tell, and we will definitely find it out.
No, are you saying these two? No, you're saying the flames are being fanned. No, 1 minute, ma'am. You are making a very serious allegation. You've been a former IAS officer. You are today telling me that the scenes that we are seeing are being fanned by someone else, that this is not spontaneous, this is not students who are angry because their examinations schedule has gone completely out of skew. They are the ones who applied for these jobs and now find a new system has come in place.
See, the kind of vandalism and the kind of violence which is seen everywhere does not seem to be organic or natural. I can say for sure, with all conviction at my command. There is somebody who is fanning the flame. Yes, there is flame. There must be anger, and the anger is because of non-comprehension of the scheme. The scheme has been formulated with the best of intentions.
Yes.
And I would just say that there is a way of communicating your grievance. This is not the way. And this is not the way, one. And number two, these boys who are doing this cannot be taken for the armed forces, because, you know, we have to have love for the country first.
No,
this is not the way to actually behave. But at the same time, I would say that the Prime Minister Modi and his government is very much with the youth of the country. We are standing by them. We are with them. We understand their concerns, and we are very flexible in our approach.
You know, ma'am, can I just stop you for a moment? Can I just stop you for a moment? Last evening, you made the changes. You made certain changes to ensure that those in the first batch at least can apply right up to the age of 23. But I just want to ask you, you made an important point saying people, many of the youth have not understood the scheme. There will be those, therefore, who will say that maybe the fears among the students, among the youth, is because the government has chosen to communicate about the scheme after announcing it. Maybe before some of these fact sheets, explanations, getting all your ministers to speak on the scheme could have been done in the build-up to it. That you don't consult enough and then you go along with the scheme, and that's why, like the farm laws, even this runs the risk of attracting anger, because there is no prior consultation or explanation given. Now we are getting fact sheets. This could have been done earlier.
I would like to mention here two things. Number one, consultations have been going on for the past 2 years. People who are in service, people who have retired have been consulted. And when a scheme is taken to the Union Cabinet, it is preceded by lots of deliberations and consultations. To say that there has been no homework and there has been absolutely non-application of mind is absolutely far from the truth.
No communication.
This has been done with the best of intentions.
But the intention,
and let me tell you, as I mentioned earlier, as I mentioned earlier, we are extremely flexible in our approach. We want to tell them as to what the scheme is. If there are questions, let them ask us. Number one. Number two, let me tell you that there had been consultations all through during the last 2 years. So I think this scheme has to be understood in the right spirit, has to be taken positively. To every action of Prime Minister Modi, there is an equal and opposite negative reaction from different quarters. So I think we are empathetic, we understand the concerns of the youth, and we are flexible enough to say that any tweaking of the scheme further will be done at the level of the defense minister. This is a major decision of the government.
Okay.
Now we need not go to the union cabinet for any kind of approval. The defense minister would see the ground realities, the operational necessities, and change the scheme as the situation demands.
Okay, that's an important news point you're giving us, that you're saying the government is flexible at the level of defense minister to make changes. Uttam Kumar Reddy, you've heard the BJP spokesperson. She has already accused the opposition without naming any specific group, saying there are certain organized groups that are fanning these flames. Do you believe that it is fair on the opposition's part also to attack the government right at the very outset? Why not give this scheme even half a chance to succeed? You're an armed forces man yourself. Don't you want reform of some kind in recruitment processes?
Rajdeep, let me again introduce myself. I'm a former Air Force fighter pilot. I flew MiG-21s and MiG-23s on both in our combat squadrons on the borders, and I understand this issue well. One, I want to tell you is that Narendra Modi government talks big on security and defense issues, but actually performs very poorly. You know, it will be of interest for you to know that in the figures submitted to Parliament in the beginning of this year, the armed forces were already short of 1 lakh of persons. I mean soldiers, airmen and sailors. And now they are come up with a scheme which is very poorly conceived. What will a person in today's high-tech war learn in 6 months? I mean 6 months service, 6 months training and 3.5 years service. Even the scheme is very poorly conceived. Now Rajdeep, I just want to come back to the situation now. Now the youth of India, I mean, nobody needs to tell them what exactly the scheme about. I'm sure they're all very aware, they've read about it.
No, you didn't answer my question again. You didn't answer my question that Aparajita raised, that suggesting that the opposition is fanning these flames, that the opposition also is getting vicarious delight. That is yet another scheme of Narendra Modi's government getting public outrage.
No. Rajdeep, that is totally false. There is absolutely no truth in Aparajita saying that the opposition has anything to do with it. The youth of this country have spontaneously reacted, saying that, firstly, there are so many vacancies. Then you come up with a contract system of recruitment in the armed forces. On 2 counts, the government is very wrong. One, they are compromising with national security. I can tell you as a former fighter pilot, a former soldier, this step of theirs definitely undermines the nation's security interest. 2, I mean, when the earlier system was working very well, only because Narendra Modi government wanted to save a few rupees on the pension bill, they have come up with a system which completely undermines the soldiers' morale. I mean, the Agniveers or whatever name they're going to call it.
Uttam Kumar Reddy, this scheme has been cleared at the level of the CDS and the chiefs. Uttam Kumar Reddy, this scheme has been cleared at the level of the service chiefs and the Chief of Defence Staff. Are you saying that they don't have a concept of national security?
Rajdeep, I am from the National Defence Academy and the present chiefs are about the same batch as me. So I don't want to go into anything else except saying that this is a government scheme.
No, you're not
which
answering
I
my
don't
question.
think the normal serving officer would be very happy. Yes.
You're saying the normal service officer is not happy.
I'm answering your
Are
question.
you saying that the political leadership has pushed this down the throat of the army, of the service chiefs?
This is the political leadership's decision. This is a political decision being, slammed down the throat of serving officers only to save on the pension bill. There is no other motive in this. And I'm telling you again, a very responsible former soldier, I'm quite convinced this will undermine the nation's security. And also as far as youth are concerned, there's so much unemployment.
No, how will it undermine? No, be specific. Uttam Kumar Reddy,
the country.
Uttam Kumar Reddy, you're saying it will undermine national security. How will it undermine it?
One, I want you to know, Rajdeep, I want you to know, one, as of now, as of now, the country as it is, short of a lack of manpower. I mean, as vis-a-vis the sanctioned strength of the Army, Air Force and Navy, these are figures given in Parliament, we are a lack of people short. Now you come up with recruitment, instead of doing regular recruitment of the 1 lakh people who are short, you come up on a kind of a contract employment, some kind of an, ad hoc employment of 46,000 people. Definitely, these people will not, usually, they won't make as good a soldier as somebody whom you're taking on a
problem is the 4-year contractual term.
With a pension benefit.
You're saying a 4-year contractual term, out of which 6 months is spent in training, will not be enough to ensure top quality people.
Rajdeep, 6 months is no training at all.
Okay.
6 months is no training at all. 6 months training, which soldier can deal with the latest weapons in the Army, Air Force or the Navy.
You made your point.
6 months is no training at all, and 4 years is too short.
Just a minute. Let's move on.
I think it's not a good scheme. The government must hold it in abeyance.
Okay, before I come to you, Jasmine Shah, just because a serious charge has now been made by the Congress that this scheme was cleared or was pushed by the political leadership, it was not really the scheme of the military chiefs or the 3 service chiefs. Aparajita, you want to respond? Because we keep hearing this, that whether it's bureaucrats in this government or whether it's the military, whether it is senior officers, it's the political leadership, the PMO that decides.
I'm really shocked to hear the words of Mr. Uttam Kumar Reddy ji. So the fact remains that we are putting a question mark on the ability of the service chiefs to give the right kind of opinion. They would never compromise with national security. They are in charge of national security. They would be giving the right kind of opinion. So for heaven's sake, don't doubt their ability or don't doubt their integrity.
Okay.
This is extremely bad for all of us. See, here there is a scheme which is in line with the scheme of different countries. Most of the countries have this short-term enlistment system for a young and agile army. We want a young and agile army. This scheme is for the country.
Okay.
2 years of consultations and deliberations have taken place, and now the Union Cabinet has approved. We are flexible. We are giving it a try. And already there is one tweaking.
Many would have said if you are giving it a try, you should have started with a pilot project before you bring in the scheme. No, just a minute. No, 1 minute. Let Jasmine Shah, he's been waiting patiently because the Aam Aadmi Party has taken an even more dramatic stand saying scrap the entire scheme. Is that what you all are suggesting? Jasmine Shah, scrap an entire scheme. As Aparajita says, there are some countries which have successfully implemented it. Now, India is not Israel. And it's, the Indian army, the Indian society with lakhs of people dependent on the army as a way of life. Do you believe that the scheme should be scrapped?
Rajdeep, I'll make it clear. The Aam Aadmi Party is completely and uncategorically in the favor of scrapping the scheme, rolling back the scheme. And why do I say that? This scheme ridicules the youth of this nation. It ridicules the valor and the commitment that the armed forces show to this nation, and it also ridicules the democracy of this nation. And give me just a few seconds to explain why. The youth of this nation prepare for years. There are youth who dream of being in the armed forces since they're very young. They prepare for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years to get into the armed forces. And what do they hear? That for 3 years that they prepare, they'll get only a service for 4 years, and at 21 years, they are going to be retired. I mean, what kind of a joke are you playing on the youth of this nation at the time when the armed forces actually needs the energy and the commitment of a youth?
No, but the government says we are making this an all-India. No, government says we are making this an all-India scheme. At 21, they are saying instead of a pension, you'll get 11 lakhs, and you have all the opportunities then to go into the wider world. The 75% who don't continue.
I said, Rajdeep, that youth are preparing for years. They dream and they want to commit their lives to the armed forces and to the security of the nation. You are playing with that emotion. No country does that. Second, you are also ridiculing the commitment that it takes to serve in the armed forces. It's the notion that these are your fellow brothers. These are the fellow people you're going to serve, and that is what makes you serve for the country in temperatures as low as -20 or as high as 50-55 degrees centigrade. You know that you are in this for life. Are you ridiculing that this kind of commitment is not going to come? By playing all these
So you want nothing to change. You want us to continue the same scheme. You're saying don't
Absolutely
make any
not.
changes. You want the same
Rajdeep,
system of recruitment.
Rajdeep, nobody should be in the favor of status quo. Every institution, every organization should be upgraded. We have always said that Indian military needs to be technologically advanced, agile, and we should be seen as one of the top armed forces in the world. But under the garb of reform, you can't take 5 steps back, ridicule the youth, ridicule the armed forces, and ridicule the democracy in the manner in which, the stealth manner in which you introduce this reform. Rajiv, this reminds us of the farmer protest. 700 farmers had to die before this government could listen to their voices.
No,
are you saying that until a few youth commit some kind of action or unsavory action, only then you are willing to hear such a big reform which has not happened for decades? You're not even willing to talk to the people of this nation. But
the question is who? No, 1 minute. The question is who are the stakeholders? Are they the youth who are protesting, or are they the service chiefs who themselves have spent years, decades in the armed forces? Who is the government to speak to? According to Aparajita, all the armed service chiefs, and they've clearly come on record as saying they are on board. Before I return to you, Aparajita, on the points that have been made, I just want to come
to that, Rajdeep. I would like to respond to that quickly.
No, very quickly. Yes, go ahead.
Very quickly. Let us not forget we are a democracy. Like the bureaucracy and people in the government have to be consulted, no government can say that I will not consult the people of this country on the reform.
You can't have a referendum now on every issue and go to the people.
Not a referendum. Why do you have the parliament? Shut down the parliament. Why do you have the state assembly? Shut down the state assembly. You made a budget speech that lasts for 2 hours. For 2 minutes, you couldn't speak about this reform in the budget speech just a few months back.
Okay.
Whom are you ridiculing this? The fact that you don't want any conversation, you will announce Big Bang reforms, and then people will have to, give strikes, protest. Some of them will have to commit suicide. Only then will this government listen.
Okay.
Is this how democracy ought to run?
Okay, you made your point. Abhishek Jha, before I move on, and I have you for limited time because the Janata Dal United's role, frankly, is in the context of Bihar. Here you've got BJP leaders saying the protests are being fanned by organized groups. End of the day, law and order is your subject. The fact is, when trains are being burned, when you have this chaos in Bihar, who is responsible? Nitish Kumar's government themselves seem to be now saying, review the scheme. Is that what the Janata Dal United wants? And do you believe, as the BJP is claiming, that the opposition is behind these protests in Bihar?
See, the scenes which are in front of the nation, especially in the state of Bihar and the other parts of the country also, is not at all good and not at all acceptable. Rajdeep. And
are you saying the opposition is behind it, or are these spontaneous protests?
See, our party's national president, Honorable Lalan Singh ji, has told that there is some kind of discontent and confusion among the students, among the youth regarding this scheme and this plan. And the central government should think about it twice or reconsider it.
No, so you're also calling ally, JDU is an ally of this government. You're calling for reconsideration of the scheme?
That is for sure. We are speaking, and our party's national president has told that once the central government should definitely reconsider this scheme entirely, and after that it will be in front of the students, in front of the youths, that whether they are accepting it or not.
Okay,
we are just not denying about the fact. See, we are not just denying about the fact that whatever has happened can be fanned. The flames can be fanned by the opposition leaders, because here in the state of Bihar, the main opposition party RJD has called for a Bihar by tomorrow.
Okay, let me stop you for a moment. Abhishek, you're saying that the RJD has called for a bandh. You're importantly saying it's a need for a review of the scheme of some form is the JDU's position. Aparajita, in that sense, this is going exactly the way the farm laws. I know that recruitment will start in a little while, and moment recruitment starts, maybe these embers will come down. People want to join the armed forces, no doubt about that. But it comes down to it. In the farm laws, the Akalis claim they were not fully consulted. Now your ally JDU says they are not consulted. And as Jasmine Shah and Uttam Reddy have pointed out, Parliament is not taken into confidence. No standing committee on defence is taken into confidence. No consultative committee on defence. It seems that all decisions are taken by the Prime Minister's office, and everyone has to say salute.
Not at all. See, cynicism is the disease our political parties on the opposite side are suffering from. And I think we need to agree. Now, the fact remains that the apprehension is that 75% of the 46,000 recruits of this year would be without job after 4 years. This is the apprehension. Now, let me tell you that our Honorable Home Minister has said, and many of the chief ministers of many states, I would be naming some of them, UP, MP, Uttarakhand, Assam and Haryana so far, have said that after 4 years, many of these 75% would be getting into the police recruitment, rather the police job in their and other related jobs in their respective states. Many of the private organizations have also already come forward and said that we would be offering them job. After 4 years in the armed forces,
ma'am, you know the job emergency in the country. You know, this is a country, ma'am. Ma'am, just a minute. No, Aparajita ji, you have been an IAS officer. You know how in state after state, examination papers get leaked, as a result of which recruitment, particularly in railways, for example, often gets delayed by 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The reality is there's a job emergency in the country. The Prime Minister himself said, I'm now going to fill 10 lakh central government job vacancies in 18 months, which you didn't for the last few years. This is the reality of India. There is a job emergency. Wake up to the reality, ma'am.
Can I come in? Rajdeep, can I come
No, 1 minute. Let her finish.
Honorable Prime Minister did announce about 10 lakh, and I think the ministries have already started working on it. Now, let me also put in a point here. 2 crore police personnel are there in this country, right? And they are in Assam Rifles, CRPF, BSF, Indo-Tibetan Border Police, CISF, and the RPF, the Reserve Police Force. These 2 crore police personnel. And, you know, there is attrition, there is, people leave their job, and there is retirement. So lots of vacancies. So this is also an area. Other related jobs also, the government would be kind of, giving preference to these 75% of the lot.
You're saying,
and this is a commitment from our ministers, from the government.
So you're saying 75% will get preference.
To put a question mark on the intention of the government every time is not right.
Okay, Uttam Kumar
I
Reddy, final word.
Appeal to all the opposition parties.
Uttam Kumar Reddy, final word on a serious issue of national security. Why question the government every time?
Rajdeep,
yes.
See, I have no doubt that this is, this move undermines national security. Second thing, Narendra Modi said he will give 2 crore jobs a year 8 years back. And in all of 8 years, he's not given combination of 2 crore jobs. Second, who will believe the Home Minister if he says that they will absorb them in paramilitary forces? Why is it not being done as of now? There are so many ex-servicemen looking for jobs. In the last 8 years, have the paramilitary forces absorbed the ex-servicemen? Why are they making it only when there's so much of hangama, chaos about this? Now they are talking about it. Have they employed ex-servicemen anywhere over the last 8 years?
Okay.
Two things, Rajdeep. One, just to save a few rupees on the pension bill, they have brought in a scheme which is ill-conceived, which is not good for the country and not good for the youth. It should be rolled back.
Okay. You should. You are all asking for a rollback. Aparajita Sarangi is saying, we are ready to be flexible. Aparajita says we are ready to be flexible, but rollback, it appears at the moment, is not going to happen. We'll wait and see what that flexibility does and whether that will assuage all the concerns of the students who have hit the street or the youth who have hit the street. Thank you all very much for joining me. That's the political part. You've seen the opposition calling for a rollback, the government saying they will go ahead and be flexible about it. But what really are the pros and cons? Let's now try and get an expert view and an explainer. The advantages. Opportunity for youth to serve the nation at a young age of 17. Profile, as I said, to be youthful, dynamic. It's attractive with a financial package for the Agniveers. When they finish their 4 years, they will get an 11 lakh package and they can enhance their skills as well at a young age. What are the disadvantages? Finding a job at the age of 21, if they are part of the 75% who have to exit at the end of 4 years, will be tough. Armed forces, no pension. The forces itself may lose experience because after 4 years, is that too short a training period is a real concern. And what happens to the army's izzat and the whole camaraderie of building a force for the future? Ajay Shukla is one of the country's premier defense analysts. He joins us. Brigadier Gyandoi Bajpai is a defense expert. We also hope to be joined by some of the students who've been affected so they can explain what their concerns are. But Ajay, you heard the politicians now calling, the opposition is calling for a rollback. I listed out the benefits, the demerits of the scheme. Is there a middle ground that can be achieved where you can go ahead with the scheme without inviting this kind of a backlash?
Yes, Rajdeep, I would say there is a middle ground, and it exists in the fact that both the ruling party and the opposition parties have at some stage along this debate admitted and agreed that we need to work on the manpower structure of the military so as to have less people drawing pension, less people drawing salaries, and that leaves enough money for modernization and for the capital expense. This is the government's chosen step to deal with that. So let's first agree that the government has actually taken a step that has been recommended at some time or the other by every party on television debates, on seminars that keep taking place.
So recommended, let me just get that right. Recommended having a leaner army or a younger army?
Having a leaner army and having an army with less manpower and more equipment.
Okay.
Now, this step that has been taken, this Agniveers and Agnipath initiative, this squarely addresses the problem of manpower surplus within the army. They are attempting to switch over incrementally from a pension drawing structure where the person serves for 15 years and then draws a pension, probably for the next 30 years. But that structure is now attempting to be replaced by a structure where a Jawan serves for just 4 years and then goes home without a pension. One cannot agree, or when one cannot disagree with the benefits of this, but one absolutely can disagree with the way it will be implemented or can be implemented, whether these people, when they go home at the end of 4 years, are adequately catered for, educated, funded, and made in a sort of position where they can look after their own livelihoods, or will they be just people who have wasted 4 years of their lives, who now are 25, 26 years old, and who are still looking for jobs because the government hasn't been able to create any.
So is the solution providing reservations, possibly, as the government seems to suggest, for example, Colonel Shukla, in the paramilitary, or indeed providing them some advantage in state government recruitment?
Yes, Rajdeep, you would recall that the military, the army especially, has been agitating for a long time for a lateral sidestepping arrangement where their Jawans who have been retired and who are well-trained, fit and alert people, whether they could be laterally sidestepped into the Central Reserve Police Force, the Border Security Force, the CISF and so on.
Right.
But remember that everybody from the structures of the Border Security Force and these other forces to the Home Ministry itself, to the Home Minister himself in Parliament, they have said, no, we cannot do this. We cannot absorb the military, for the simple reason that every promotion is a money-making opportunity. There are so many entrenched interests in all these police organizations that they don't want to rock the boat by bringing in army people. So how are you going to get the Home Ministry to change its mind? That's a big problem.
Okay, so that's one of the possibilities, that if you can get certain guarantees in place and written guarantees that can ensure maybe a transition from these 4 years in the army to maybe a paramilitary force or some state government recruitment, that could be a solution. Brigadier Vajpayee, do you see a middle ground? You know, we've seen polarized positions from our politicians. Yeah. The opposition is calling for a rollback. It would seem that a rollback at this stage seems not the answer. Do you see, therefore, a possibility of a middle ground?
Yes, Rajdeep, I think it is possible that we can work out some kind of a rollback, not a rollback in the sense, because rollback will portray a very bad picture for the country itself. When a government has taken a particular stance, we can increase the age of demitting the office of the Agniveers, that is now 4 years, we can make it 7 years. That would be a viable thing. The color service, originally in the Indian Army,
in the British time used to be that much.
No,
so
but then you'll have, sir, with due regard, then you'll have...
7 years, there's no need to junk.
No, then you'll have 24-year-olds who are unemployed. Now you'll have 21-year-olds, then you'll have 24-year-olds who are unemployed.
Yes, so that... Yes. So we are talking about that guarantee already. Colonel Shukla has already mentioned that that guarantee by the states, by the government has to be taken that they will be inducted. Why I'm saying 7 years is because 4 years is too less for us in the army to look at a man becoming part of a combat efficient unit. He is not a combatant hardly. He's seen one field in the 4 years. Only one field. Which field? Where? Has he seen mountains? Has he seen deserts? He is not even, I would say, not even half-baked soldier. So he is like a kind of a brick which doesn't fit in anywhere.
So
in 4 years,
so
7 years he will be
telling me
efficient.
7 years.
If something happens.
You're telling me 7 years is a better period to test a person's ability, yes, his character and his contribution to the army. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, given that, Colonel Shukla.
Correct. That is how we can also say how much we want to retain.
Okay. Colonel Shukla, you agree with that? That maybe 7 years instead of 4 years?
How much?
7 years sort of it makes the decision point go a little further into the future, but it will exacerbate the problem, which, as you just said just now, instead of 21 and 22 and 23-year-olds, you're getting now 27 and 28-year-olds into the job market without adequate jobs to sort of satisfy them. So I don't think that this 7-year structure will solve the problem. The problem will only get solved when there is adequate job creation within the country, and there are alternatives for these retirees to actually go into without ruffling feathers, as they would if they went into the CRPF. There must be some way of creating jobs in the country that will cater for these. As long as those people who are going home at the end of 4 years are sort of have some employment, some prospects ahead of them, as long as that happens, I don't think there'll be much of a problem. But that's, the government has not yet shown its ability to create jobs enough for the people.
So the real crisis is actually the job emergency that is confronting the country. That the real reason why this outrage is there is because people are worried that their futures, in a sense, will be compromised at the end of 4 or 7 years. Brigadier Bajpai, any other suggestions that you would give that can make the system better? We've all agreed that you need reform, but you need reform perhaps to be done in a very different way. So any other suggestions to curb the unrest?
That Rajdeep was the thing. Actually, the guarantee is the main thing. Guarantee post, after 7 years, when they leave, that guarantee is in the first step. And then we want 7 years, because 7 years, then we can test him properly and we can decide that this is the 25% we are retaining.
Okay.
Now in 4 years, we can't even judge a person properly to whom to retain, whom to jettison. Now we'll be jettisoning 75%, that again is bad. That should be reduced to 50% jettisoning. And then in another 5 years, with the same guarantee that that man will be employed, re-employed in either the CAPF, CRPF or even the TA, which is inside the army.
There are no employment guarantees that can be given at the moment, given the state of the country and the challenges that the country faces. And that really is the critical issue. That is the elephant in the room in a way that has to be addressed. It's all very well to want to reform the army, but you've got to reform the army in the context of the social context in which India operates, where job creation is becoming more and more difficult. For now, Colonel Shukla, Brigadier Bajpai, I appreciate you joining us. Hopefully someone out there is listening and will try and tweak the scheme and make it more flexible in the future. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Rajdeep.
Let's take a break. You've heard the politicians, you've heard the experts. The jury is still out on the Agnipath scheme. On the other side, we'll turn to our ground report. It comes tonight from Assam, a part of the country where floods are an annual ritual. This year too, the waters are streaming across Assam. We'll have more on the other side. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India Today. You are...
Welcome back. Let's turn to tonight's Get Real India package. It comes from the state of Assam, a state which every year goes through immense flooding at this time of the year. The flash flood situation this year too remains grim in Assam because of the incessant rainfall. Several cities in the state are waterlogged, roads, massive power cuts and landslides across rural Assam. Here's tonight's ground report.
Streets submerged in water. Massive power blackouts. Floods in the northeast have left a trail of devastation in Assam. 8 people have lost their lives, 6 of them in landslides. More than 11 lakh people have been impacted by the floods across 25 districts of Assam.
প্ৰায় আমাৰ প্ৰায় 40-50 ঘৰ মানুহ পানীৰ তলত আছে বৰ্তমান প্ৰায় 1.5 কিলোমিটাৰ ৰাস্তা কোনো মানুহ অহা যোৱা কৰিব নোৱাৰে আনকি ইয়াত এখন কণ্ট্ৰল দোকান আছে এই কণ্ট্ৰল দোকানত চাউল অহা নাই 2 মাহ মানুহে কি খাব কওকচোন বাৰু
Life came to a standstill with several residential areas submerged in knee and waist deep water. In Assam's Kamrup district, heavy rains damaged several embankments in the region, ruining vast swaths of cropland.
Amar Rohingya townate duta hibir hoise. Eya Balagaon hoise duta hibir. Hibir bilakot golo manuhor buj lolo. Ar logote amar Circle Officer জৰিয়তে বা ৰেভিনিউ ডিপাৰ্টমেণ্টৰ জৰিয়তে যিখিনি সাহায্য দিয়া হৈছে তাৰ বুজ ললো সকলোৱে জানি সাহায্যটো পায়
With monsoons landing in the northeast, there is very little hope of rains ceasing. This means more misery for people. Bureau Report, India Today.
Assam, which seems to fall off the map every monsoon. Now remember, in our debate on Agnipath, the focus was on, in a way, the elephant in the room, as I call it, the job crisis facing the country. We've been reporting on that from different parts of the country, the job emergency, as I call it, across India. Today's report comes from Rajasthan, where the unemployed have once again camped in the capital city of Jaipur, protesting that they are being fired from their jobs. Take a look at Congress-ruled Rajasthan, where jobs again are a major concern for the young. It's Get Real India.
Scene 1.
5 लोगों में क्या फर्क पड़ता है प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री आप ऐसे उनको आप नहीं कर रहे तो दिल्ली पुलिस
Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot camped in Delhi holding protests to show solidarity with Rahul Gandhi, who is being questioned by the ED.
आप भी हमारे साथ चलिए आप 100 लोग खड़े हैं आप पूरा हमारे
Scene 2. Rajasthan police using force on unemployed youth who gathered at the Shahid Samarak in Jaipur to meet state ministers.
हमारे साथ धोखा क्यों हम पिछले 3 दिन से पड़े हुए हैं इसके में और फिर मुकदमा दे रहे हो ये लो FIR नंबर 133 ये विधायकपुर थाने में मुकदमा दर्ज किया गया हमारे बेरोजगारों के ऊपर
The youth of Rajasthan are demanding jobs. They want the state government to fill 6,000 vacancies of technical helpers as announced in the budget. Hold tests for 2,639 posts under Panchayati Raj and hold tests for junior accountant vacancies advertised in February. Naresh Gurjar finished BTech in civil engineering in 2017. This is his third visit from his hometown Bharatpur to Jaipur to take part in protests. Naresh says since 2018, the state government has not recruited civil engineers in junior category.
एसएससी में पहले तो सर आज से 2015 से पहले बिफोर पहले तो सर उसमें वैकेंसी हर साल आती थी, उसके बाद में 17 में आई, फिर 2 साल बाद में आ गई, अब तो 3 साल हो गए सर। कोविड के दौरान तो सर कोई वैकेंसी नहीं है। सिविल इंजीनियरिंग का डिपार्टमेंट इतना गंदा हो चुका है, इतने बेरोजगार हो चुके सर इस मतलब लाइन के अंदर जिसकी कोई हद नहीं है।
Rajpal Yadav from Bagru and Sanjay Kumar from Dholpur are preparing for accountants test. They had applied in February and tests were to take place in June. But they now stand postponed to the next year.
अभी तक ना तो सीईटी का सिलेबस आया है, ना कोई इसका क्लियर डेट आई है। अब बच्चे कंफ्यूजन में कि वो सीईटी की तैयारी करे या जूनियर अकाउंटेंट की तैयारी करे। अब बच्चे सर 20-20, 25-25 हज़ार रुपये फीस दे के तैयारी कर रहे हैं। अब ना तो वो इधर के रहे ना उधर के रहे।
While accountant tests are postponed, Rajasthan did hold tests to fill vacancies for teachers, constables and lower division clerks. But all were put off after question papers were leaked. The Union of Jobless Youth say that they will launch a political agitation if the Gehlot government does not take steps to create jobs. With Sharad Kumar, Bureau Report, India Today.
The Union of Jobless Youth, the harsh reality of India, which our decision makers need to really wake up to. To our good news today story, a story of how waste can be converted into something useful. In Jodhpur, a park made out of things that people throw out of their houses has become a wonder park made out of garbage. Take a look.
It's called the Waste to Wonder, and nothing describes it better. This park in Jodhpur is entirely made up of waste materials. Jodhpur has a very ambitious plan to make the city garbage free. So, what better way than to find use of everyday junk?
ये प्रयास हमारा रहा है कि जो बायोडिग्रेडेबल वेस्ट है या जो अनयूज्ड सामान है, जो वेस्ट सामान जो हम घरों से बाहर फेंक देते हैं, उनको एक बहुत ही सुंदर आकार देकर हमने एक पार्क तैयार किया है.
Plastic jars, glass bottles or any other waste that would normally find its way to landfills have been creatively used in this park.
ये जो वर्ल्ड एनवायरनमेंट वीक चल रहा है, उसमें हमारा ये प्रयास रहेगा कि आने वाले समय में बायोडिग्रेडेबल बैग्स भी हम बना के लोगों में वितरित करें, उसका भी एक अभियान चला जाएगा.
A touch of humor too. Selective film dialogues and slogans have been used to connect to the theme of the park. Park in Jodhpur kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It finds a way to use trash, while at the same time giving an entertainment zone to the city. Bureau Report, India Today.
Nice positive story there. Good news today. But I want to leave you with an image that should sadden all of us. The protests in Bihar have not even spared young children. A school bus in Darbhanga was stranded for hours as the protesters against the Agnipath scheme raged around them. Scared and helpless, the children can be seen crying as they were locked up inside their bus. Everyone has the right to protest, but protests must be peaceful. When you start burning trains, targeting young students, targeting school buses, public and private property, it's simply unacceptable. It takes away the moral core of your protests. Think about it. Agnipath should not result in Agni across the country. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night. Jai Hind. Shubhratri. Namaskar.
India Today TV wins big at NT Awards 2022. Bags 14 most coveted awards. TV news presenter male Rahul Kanwal. Business news anchor female Abha Bakaya. Best news debate show News Track. Best talk show To The Point. Daily news bulletin News Today. TV news reporter Ashutosh Mishra. Sports special Go for Gold. Best use of graphics by a news channel State of War 2021 elections. And many more. With 37 awards for the India Today group, the most credible network is also the most awarded.
You are watching
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Everyone's busy finding what's trending. You're busy finding out why. India Today for those who research before reacting. Download the India Today app now.
You are
Co-powered by Buy, Sell, Rent on 99acres.com. This is no protest. It's a spreading riot. Even kids and school buses fair game for protesters. But is this really just Agnipath anger? Or is there a hidden hand visible? Are Agnipath riots following a toolkit? Are WhatsApp groups mobilizing this anarchy? India Today uncovers dark reality of riots. Hidden hand fanning this fearsome fire.
Anyone who thinks that the violence that has escalated visibly over the last 3 days, becoming truly chaotic anarchy in different parts of the country, was an organic protest against Agnipath, is living in a fool's paradise. And I wish you well for your blindness or your willful blindness, because there were parts of what has happened over the last 18 hours that can only be called criminal action. This was a riot, viewer, and let's not be silly, let's not be stupid, let's not be so dense that we can't call out what we see right in front of our eyes. And here on India First, we're going to tell you, not only do we think that this was a large-scale riot in different parts of the country, not all of it, but much of it was a riot.